I first met Gihad, can't remember the year, but she came to the Southwest Youth Collaborative, which is a sister organization of the Arab American Action Networks in Chicago. At the time, it was a year after the Intifada began in 2000. It was sometime in 2001, and this young woman came to the center because we had an event that we called the Cafe Intifada, and it was a spoken word event, and it was dominated by young people. And they would come up there and they would read their poetry and they would do their spoken word and they would read their essays and they would be talking not only about the Intifada but also about war and occupation, and also about war and occupation in their own neighborhoods, police occupation and violations against students and youth of color especially. And she told this incredible story through her spoken word. And one of her poems, a couple years later, ended up being written as a song by a Danish hip-hop group, made #1 in Denmark. I will tell you, it's kind of ironic. I mean, I'm her supervisor, I'm the executive director, but it's ironic that I'm giving the award today, because the reason why she came into the consciousness of NAC and Access and the people and organizations in this room is because for the last 3 or 4 years, she brought 10, 15, 20 of our youth to these conferences. And it's an irony that we couldn't do it this year. We didn't have the resources or the time to be able to organize them. But that's how she came into the consciousness, because she really is a leader as a youth organizer. It's not just an advocate. It's not just a social services position. But as Rashida was describing, it's going every day, door to door, talking to mothers and telling them why their children will develop as leaders in this society if they came to the AAAN and they worked with Gihad.
This is a beautiful award. It's not just a plaque, it's a piece of art. So thank you. I'm deeply humbled by this award and that introduction. I told myself I wouldn't write a speech, because I didn't want to read at you. So I said I would write bullet points and then I would just talk. So my bullet points are 2 pages. And we're already past time. So I do have some things I want to share with you. And I want to talk specifically about the importance of doing work with our young people and our youth, because as I was saying to Nadia earlier, we haven't talked about that enough in this conference, and we don't usually talk about our young people and our youth enough in our work, unfortunately. So I want to talk about the importance of investing in our youth and the promise that you will see a return on that investment. I've seen it time and time again. And those are some of the proudest moments, when you see youth develop and grow and do things that they wouldn't have done a year before that, or 6 months prior, or even 4 months prior. Everybody learns and develops and grows at their own pace. And it's so important to meet youth exactly where they are. So I want to share some very brief stories with you. 2 years ago, when we came to the NAC conference, which was held here in Detroit, I brought with me 3 young women who had come into our program as writing apprentices in our creative writing program. They were around for so long that they had become leaders in the program, and then they were part of our youth leadership team. And then after that, they became interns, and they became the youngest members of our staff. And they came to NAC, to the conference here, and we were invited to do a workshop on the importance of youth work. So I asked them to take the lead, and they did a phenomenal job. And then afterwards, it was a really great workshop. There was a great discussion and great Q&A. And afterwards, there was a line of about 3 or 4 people waiting to speak to them and ask them questions about how do we get youth involved and what makes you, and so there were all these questions. And the youth came up to me afterward and said, "Gihad, we felt like celebrities. We knew our program was good, but we didn't know it was awesome." And so they went back to Chicago, and they had such amazing energy. They were rejuvenated, and they brought back so many ideas. They were so motivated. Now, these were adults, by the way, who were standing in line to talk to them, of course. Young people didn't need to ask other young people, what do you need to get youth in the building? That was 2 years ago. Last year, when we landed in Newark for our conference, again the NAC conference, in Newark and New Jersey, we had 14 young people with us. And it was September 24th, 2010. And we arrived at our hotel to find out that back in Chicago, one of our beloved colleagues had his home raided by the FBI and was subpoenaed before a federal grand jury, along with others in a nationally coordinated effort, others in Minnesota and Chicago. And that colleague was Hazim Mudayya, who's one of my mentors, and actually he doesn't give himself enough credit for where I am today. When he met me in 2002, not 2001, I was a very different person. And so he's been the reason for much of my development and awareness. And so the youth love Hatton. They love Hatton. And so they were devastated. We were all devastated. We were scared, we were confused, we were offended, we were angry, everything. And while I sat there, of course, I probably understood it a little bit more than the young people. I probably understood the attack at our community a little bit more and deeper than the youth. They were the ones consoling me. And they were the ones saying to me, this is wrong, and we're going to fight this, and we're not going to let anything happen. And they weren't just speaking. It wasn't like we say in Arabic, haki bala fa'al. 3 months later, in December, the FBI came through our community and actually came to our center as well. And they issued 9 more subpoenas to a federal grand jury that was investigating material support of terrorism. And one of those subpoenas was this time for the youth's leader, Gihad. And of course, it was the youth, yet again, who said, Gihad, don't be scared. I wasn't really scared. I was angry, angrier. And it was the youth who said, yet again, we're going to go to the FBI headquarters, and we're going to protest this, and we're going to have meetings around this, and we're going to get the community involved. And they did. And now, over 1 year later, as we just commemorated the 1 year anniversary of those FBI attacks, it's the youth who are the ones getting the people together, the older ammos who bicker across the table about something minor and insignificant. It's the young people who get the people in the room and lead the meetings and chair the meetings and carry that work forward. So that's another return on our investment. We're seeing it. There are countless returns on this investment in our young people. I want to share 3 more really quick blurbs about some of our young people that I've worked with. When 13-year-old Sanat, who sat in our program for 3 months straight without saying a single word at all to anyone, except me when I would kind of come over and nudge her, when she gets up at the end of the program at our cafe, which now the youth call Never Silent Cafe, because they wanted to name it. They didn't want the adults to name their event, so they changed the name to Never Silent Cafe. When she gets up at the event and blows the audience away in an amazing, phenomenal poetic performance in perfect Arabic, that's a return on our investment. And when 17-year-old, I'm going to use the name Maryam for confidentiality here. When 17-year-old Maryam handwrites a Hallmark card note to me to say thank you, because the week that she joined the AAAN youth programming, that was the week that she was supposed to be initiated into the Latin Kings as a queen bee. She didn't, of course. And she's moved away from those friends. That's a return on our investment. And when 22-year-old Sharifa says to me, I was never proud to be Arab, I was so ashamed of my culture until I came to the AAAN. That's a return on our investment. And so we have 2 major challenges. One is that we need to teach our youth to love themselves and to love their culture and to understand their culture and their identity. And I have so many stories about youth not knowing where they are on the map. They come from Palestine, but they don't know where Ramallah is, or they don't know where Akka is. And when we did our math activity, somehow Yafa ended up in Naqab. We got our map together now, but it takes a long time, but it's worth it. I promise you, it's worth it. These are the people who are going to be the next Rashidas. These are the people who are going to be the next Nadias. So we really do need to invest in our youth. But the other challenge is not just teach them to love themselves, right? The other challenge is, unfortunately, especially now in post 9/11, we have to undo some of the teachings that have been done, because they do come in ashamed and wronged in every sense of the word. There's no opportunity, there's no space for them, especially not in their public school system, to learn about themselves, their people, their history, their culture, and to learn to love themselves and their people. So I urge you and challenge you. There are leaders and service providers and program developers in front of me. We really do need to invest in our youth, and I promise you will find a very wonderful return on your investment. Thank you so much. Thank you to the NAC Host Committee and to the advisory board and to the staff. This is very beautiful. I can't wait to put it next to all my other awards, which this is my first real award. But the other awards include Hallmark cards and little toys from the dollar store and candles and chocolate bars from my youth. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited.